Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. A little update on the weather this week because we are going to have some severe weather to our west, but the good news, the risk for the Carolinas is relatively low, but unfortunately this looks to be another significant outbreak for areas to our west. So you can see the overall picture here this morning, really going towards about noontime today. The system we're watching is actually right here over Albuquerque, New Mexico. That is going to be moving into the southern plains today and really is going to start driving some of the severe weather risk that we're going to see today across Texas and Oklahoma. And that threat is going to shift to the east. But unlike last week's system, which basically tracked just across the southeast, this one is doing one of these things. It's going to go up into the Ohio Valley. So the risk for the Ohio Valley is increasing, but areas in the Carolinas, the risk is looking a little bit lower at this point. So let's take a look at that severe weather outlook starting today and then going through Friday. Here's that severe weather risk today. You can see we've got that medium risk across Texas into parts of southern Oklahoma and Arkansas, but generally a lower risk in these areas. I'll zoom in a little bit closer. We'll go to tomorrow. Tomorrow is where things get really active. And again, there's a significant area that we're watching in northern Mississippi, Alabama, into southern parts of Tennessee. But unlike last week's system, notice where this is oriented. More of a risk heading up into the Ohio Valley than pushing to the east. But I will caution, there could be a line of storms with some kind of squall line, maybe entering the mountains late tomorrow evening. So we'll watch that potential there as it pushes off to the east. And again, then day 3, which is going out, you could see a low risk basically along the front, especially in the heating of the day as we go into Friday. Now, the good news for the Western Carolinas, we're kind of going to be in that sweet spot where the front will be dying and coming in during the cool part of the morning and then pushing off to the east. But the overall risk is really, really low. This is much lower than at any point last week when we had the risk for severe storms. The good news, again, would probably be more of a straight line wind event. Not that it's a good news for any severe weather, but less of a tornado risk here in the Carolinas. So kind of going to show you how this is going to play out as we look at that future cast here. All right, let's show you this future cast as we go through time. You can see today, no issues, really kind of a warm day. I really want to pay attention to what's happening to our west as this system comes out of New Mexico and moves into the southern plains. So we'll go into this evening, and you can see why we have that severe risk exactly where we had it earlier. In fact, I'll pop that up real quickly just to show you. Look where it sets up, and that kind of makes sense looking at it right there. You can see that risk lining up pretty well with the guidance. So we'll go through time, then we'll go into Thursday, and you can see how this pushes to the east. Look at this second wave of low pressure here. And again, watch the orientation of some of these storms developing. Again, some rain possibly moving into the mountains later tonight and early tomorrow. But this is what we're watching right there. I mean, that looks like supercells setting up in many locations right there. And if we look at the day 2 outlook, you can kind of see right there. I'll overlay them. So those areas, that's why we're really highlighting. And just looking at again, this is a future radar. It's not going to be precise where these exact storms are going to set up. But the fact that you're seeing supercells pretty dominantly showing up in this is always a concern. You see the band of rain heading towards the mountains. And again, that's where there's a low-end risk for severe storms tomorrow night for the mountains, because this is going to become more of a squall line. Look how it starts setting up and then moving in to the Carolinas really on Thursday night into early Friday. And you see that squall line. Now, this is midnight almost Friday morning. So that's why we've got that potential. And again, you see that low risk and the medium risk there. It should be falling apart, but sometimes these storms have enough momentum to keep the gusty winds coming out of them. So that potentially could be moving in. And then we'll go into early Friday. So this is why the timing works out. This is 2:33 in the morning. The storms are weakening. So the front arriving during the coolest part of the day, huge benefit for us. And the fact that most of the energy, you can see the low itself is way up here in the Great Lakes. So this is just the cold front doing most of the work and not the upper level system. I know a lot of times we see strong cold fronts and we think cold front ramming into warm, humid air equals severe. Yes, it does, but you still need some of this energy with the low, which is up here. So the area along the front here would be an area I would be more concerned about. And because the low is up there and the front is down here, you can see how weak the line looks as it pushes to the east. But again, as this front pushes east during the morning hours, I'll stop this. It only goes to 11 a.m. But this would start pushing to the east. So day 3, the storms might refire up along this line. And that's why there's kind of a low-end risk for eastern North Carolina and parts of central North Carolina into the Midlands of South Carolina. So that's kind of the timing of all this as we look ahead. This will be a decaying line of storms basically pushing in from the west that eventually will just fall apart, hopefully, as it pushes through the mountains. So real quickly, we'll just look at that significant tornado parameter, which again is just the ingredients for tornadic storms, and we'll go through time. And obviously, we're going through Thursday morning here into the early afternoon, mid-afternoon, and you can see across these areas of eastern Mississippi into western Alabama, you got some 4 or 5 showing up there, and up into Tennessee as well. As we go through time, that threat shifts a little bit north, but not really east. So as we go into the Carolinas, I'm going to stop this early Friday morning, right around 8 a.m., 9, 10, 11. The threat overall is really, really low. There's a couple spots there where it's at maybe a half. So the risk overall, I will tell you, for Friday is incredibly low, especially compared to what we had last week. And even though that threat decreased a little bit, it still wasn't zero, obviously. We had a couple tornado warnings and some touchdown in the Greensboro area. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's a day I would definitely be a little bit more weather aware than normal. Make sure you have a couple ways to get warnings. But certainly on our scale from 0 to 5, we're probably at a 1 as opposed to like a 3 like last week, with last week's setup because of the energy moving to the north. Of course, I'll do updates tonight, tomorrow, as we get closer to this. But if you have friends or family, Mississippi, Alabama, into Tennessee, make sure they're weather aware. This is the second week in a row, unfortunately, they will be impacted by severe storms.